At some point in midlife, many women find themselves navigating a lot all at once, their own changing seasons of life and the growing needs of aging parents. The roles start to shift. The conversations aren't always easy, and it can feel overwhelming at times. Today, we're talking about how to move through this stage with clarity, compassion, and confidence. And we're going to do that with our amazing guest. You'll meet her in just a moment. But first, a quick break. Not to worry though, we'll be back in a flash, a hot flash.
Supporting our energy after 50 is about choosing simple routines that truly support us. Whether you're caring for aging parents, navigating big life transitions, or just trying to stay consistent day to day, energy matters. For me, that includes movement, rest, and simple support like B12 Blast from Bricker Labs, a liquid blend of vitamin B12 and folic acid that's become part of my routine. If you'd like to learn more, visit brickerlabs.com/AGG10 and use code AGG10 at checkout. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Ageless Glamour Girls Podcast, where we celebrate and empower women 50 plus on our ageless aging journey. I'm your host, Marqueeta Curtis-Haynes. I'm the CEO and founder of the lifestyle brand Ageless Glamour Girls, where we talk all things aging, all things aging. All right, I'm so excited about today. I am joined by Laura Tamblyn Watts, CEO of CanAge. Now that's Canada's National Seniors Advocacy Organization. She's also an elder lawyer, and she is also author of an incredible book, a best-selling book, Let's Talk About Aging Parents. So we're going to bring her up to the stage. Hi. Before I introduce you, before I stop again, I just want to say your work, we know that your work focuses on helping families navigate one of life's most emotional transitions or periods, and that's supporting our aging parents while also, taking care of ourselves and our own families and our careers and our second and third acts. And yes, we know that it can become very tricky. So welcome to the show, Laura. I am thrilled that we are having this conversation.
Well, it's great to be here. And I'm turning 55, so I'm right in the cohort that you're talking about.
What a beautiful age, 55. Yeah, I remember that age. Oh my God. I do remember that age. And what an important subject matter, right? And, I've been through it already. And both my parents are now deceased, but I've been through it. And we all know people who are going through it, and you may be going through it yourself. To our viewers, our listeners. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, Laura, we know you spent your entire career helping older adults age well. I love that. And you do that in a multitude of ways. And so I want to give our listeners, our viewers, a sense of what you do and your work, because you are a rock star. Now, for starters, tell us about CanAge and what you're seeing right now when it comes to family supporting aging parents.
So CanAge is like the Canadian version of your AARP for your American listeners, or wherever you are listening or watching around the world. There's probably an older person's advocacy association in your country. So we're the ones who do it in Canada. But having said that, we're part of these same global conversations. We always talk about we're living longer, which is great. It's how are we living longer? What's the way that we're actually managing it? In many countries, including the United States and Canada, we're living longer, but we're not actually living more healthily. It's a big shock to people, right? In fact, the OECD report says that for both of our countries, there's about 7 to 9 years of ill health, and we don't often plan for that. So I'm not just talking about how do we think about doom and gloom, but how do we live our best life? How do we age vibrantly at any age that we're at? And what is it that we can do now that makes things better for later? And then also, how do we deal with the just-in-time stuff? For all that we tell people, you should eat right and exercise, I'm pretty sure that not every one of us ate right and exercised this morning. So, put that aside, right? Just, we all know that there's an ideal state out there, but most of us don't actually live it, myself included. And so understanding with a bit of grace and compassion that we can kind of only do what we can do. What's the right information to have at the right time that can really make a difference for ourselves, for other people that we know? And then kind of a bit of that work back. Okay, now that we see that just-in-time thing that happened to maybe my parents or my grandparents or my friend or my spouse, aunties, uncles, whatever it is, whatever's in our space, how is it that we want to think to ourselves, maybe I should do that? And then part of what we also talk about a lot at CanAge, and what I try to really emphasize, in the same way that we all don't eat right and exercise every single day of our life.
Yeah.
We don't all love our families, right? There's this idea somehow, this leave it to beaver idea that we all sit down to dinner together and everyone loves everyone for every time. And that's actually just not what families are like. And I want to be really clear. I talk about families as a short form, or your aging parents as a short form. I mean, whoever's in your life, it could be family of choice. You could be part of the LGBT
family
community.
of choice, right?
It could be whatever version it is. It could be your neighbor who feels like an auntie to you, whoever is in your space. But these are often very complicated relationships. And sometimes we're our best selves and we've had lots of sleep, and we don't have to worry about getting to work at 8 a.m. and taking the kids or even the grandkids where we're taking, because we're no longer a sandwich generation.
Right.
We're a club sandwich generation.
So what a vision.
So think about it. It's quite common. We would have people in our lives in their 90s, increasingly common. That means probably the people who are supporting them are maybe early 70s, which means their kids are 50s, late 40s, which means that they could be grandparents themselves.
That's right.
And so we have to get out of this idea that everything happens in some type of scheduled time. And that everything will happen to the person either urgently or I'll see it coming. No, sometimes, your 45-year-old spouse may fall down and break their leg and have a head injury impact. So you may need to be supporting that person while at the same time you're taking care of your grandchildren and your parents. So think about these types of dynamic relationships.
Yeah, you do see a lot and hear about that. And I'm sure people who are doing just that. And as you were talking, I thought about my own journey when my mother had an accident back in 2008. And she ended up living with my sister and her family. And so I was long distance. My brother then was long distance. So that brings on a whole new element to caregiving. But you just never know. You never, ever know. So you just try to, manage it and find out any information that you can on a regular basis. And that's when you come in. And what I love too is that you mentioned the AARP. So that brings it home for the viewers and, for everyone that yes, you are the AARP.
But we're colder. It's up north. It's a little bit colder. And we have the same issues. How do you make sure that your money lasts long enough? What social support services are available? Lots of people don't realize that there are things, maybe community-based agencies, things in your local county or village or municipality. There can be things that you can get that aren't government things that are available as well. So how do you kind of take stock of what you have, what you need, what can be done long distance? Like you, so many of us are very far away from the people that we feel that connection or tie to, whether you feel a positive connection or tie or a negative connection or tie may depend on the day. But you're quite commonly in my country, if you're in the same jurisdiction, we call them provinces, you'd call them states, you're probably about 300 miles away from each other on average. And if you're in the same country, but you're not in the same, again, province or state, you're probably something like 2,000 miles away. And so what's the role of technology now in supporting, and who can do what remotely? We can do a lot more remotely than we used to, but you have to know about these things in order to start implementing them.
That's a good topic right there. Yeah, a sidebar for the future. Yeah, because there are people, back in the day, everybody lived in the same town.
Right.
but now it's like everybody lives so far away from each other.
Mm.
And so we're doing the best we can.
We're doing the best we can. And a lot of the issues may be really hands-on stuff that may need to be more close by. But if
Right.
you're supporting someone with financial, maybe you're their power of attorney for their
Mhm.
finances, or you're helping to support them. Most of
Mhm.
that stuff can be done no matter where you are in the world these days.
That's
I use FaceTime and Zoom calls with my 89-year-old parents, and
Mhm.
we've simplified the technology for them. If you teach people how to do things, they can do it. So it may be that you mount, your iPad on the wall so they don't have to keep moving it around and leave it
Oh,
charged,
that's
and just
great.
have one button that says answer. And then they who may have problems with hearing, you can put the closed captions on the bottom, right? So there's lots of
Mhm.
things that are solutions. I usually ask people to really sit down and not react to what you're confronted with, which is hard because, of course,
Mhm.
it's emotional,
Mhm.
you're tired, you're worried, whatever's going on, and really build out what's the problem we're trying to solve for. So here's a scenario people know really well. Mom's in, the big family house. Maybe they're in middle America. You live on one of the coasts, right? You're not next door. And you're
Mhm.
really worried. And you think to yourself, I should probably move her out to me in, Maine, or move her out
Mhm.
to me in
Mhm.
California. And here she is in Oklahoma, and she's lived in Oklahoma her whole life. And, now she's 92, right? But you're really worried she's in the big family house all alone.
Mhm.
Stop.
Mhm.
Is it that you're worried that she's alone? At which point, let's think about loneliness and social isolation and getting community supports in, or how does she get to her faith community, or what activities can she be involved in, or transportation. Are you worried she's going to fall? Like she's going to fall down the stairs, or she's going to
Oh
fall,
gosh.
right? Because we know that is one of the worst things you can do. So if so, let's talk about falls prevention. Maybe she can be on the main floor, not using the second floor. Maybe we can make some accommodation, and maybe she can't stay in that house, but she could live somewhere really close by because she's
Mhm.
staying in her community.
Mhm.
Are you
Mhm.
worried that she doesn't know anyone in her community anymore? Because the community's changed. Okay, so then we can think about that. Are you
Mhm.
worried that she can't get the health care she needs where she is? Okay, that's a different question. And it may be that you're worried about all of these things, but they
Right.
have
Right.
different answers to
Right.
it. And usually the solution is don't get your mom from Oklahoma and, haul her out to wherever it is you live, unless she's got some connections, because it's so disorienting. They know where the coffee shop is, they know where the local
Mhm.
Walmart is, they know
Mhm.
how to get about, and they know, the visuals about how to get around in the community, or maybe the person's still at the crossing guard and so on.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
is actually what orients you. If you pick someone up and move them to a totally different place,
Mhm.
with very
That's tricky.
quick
That's
move,
yeah.
it's usually very bad. People usually
Yeah.
deteriorate very quickly,
Yeah.
unless you kind of think about warming the pot. Maybe they come out for a month, then they go back. Or maybe they could take an Airbnb, or they stay in some, take care of someone's dog, and you warm it up and they get connected to the community. Then after the pot's warm, maybe you do the move. But otherwise, mostly people do better if they're staying put.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I mean it's an ideal situation to want to age at home, but age in place and
That's it.
age around your loved ones. And yeah, when we moved my mother, that was a challenge.
It's really hard. Aging
Yeah.
in the right place is such an important point, right? So you say, well, I
Mhm.
want to age in place. If you ask anyone, do you want to move, or do you want to go to a nursing home? The answer is no. I mean, that's
No.
right. That's not what most people want. And most
Right.
people just don't go to nursing homes. Actually, I've only a very few percentage of people ever need that 24-hour care. Overwhelmingly, most care is done by, that either family by blood or family of choice connections
Exactly.
and so on.
Mhm.
And it's socially protective, it's mentally protective, but the right place may not be on that third floor.
Right.
The right place may be maybe in a garden suite. The right place may be down the way in some congregate. Golden Girl style living is really making a resurgence. That's something that we're seeing a lot of
Oh,
Golden Girl.
yes. That's oh my God, that's a vibe. That's a vibe. I love that. Yes, that was it. Yeah, yeah.
And it's really effective because often people share expenses,
Mhm.
and sometimes they can really upgrade where they live to someplace kind of fabulous. And you
Right.
see people
Right.
buy these beautiful old places, or even a new build, with many different suites in it, and they share common space, and maybe they share cooking, and they
Right.
bring in some supports, and there's 5 or 6 people there all to get
Mhm.
supports very effectively.
Mhm.
Maybe they bring in meals, and they can have, well, like much nice quality meals because 5 or 6 people are splitting it. And
Mhm.
then you have that social connection, or someone can take care of your dog.
Social
Sometimes people
connection.
worry. Yeah, sometimes,
Mhm.
having a pet is a great thing. But if
Mhm.
people think, well, if I can't walk my dog, or, one's taking care of my cat, well, if you've got a few other golden girls there with you, someone can usually lend a hand.
That is so true. Have some golden girls. And then plus, as some women say who live with other women as they get older, it's like, I don't have to worry about picking up behind another
No,
man. Oh,
that's
oh,
true.
oh,
The
oh, I
toilet
didn't say
seat.
that.
You don't need to worry about the toilet seat. Absolutely. And I mean, there's ways of doing it that are really effective. And we're really seeing that to something that's happening. Sometimes it's a full-time place. Sometimes it's a shared, maybe a place where you go if you want to get out of the cold, a little bit warmer. And then sometimes you really do need to look at what does retirement living look like. People have this old idea of it, but actually some places are fabulous. Someone who may be very socially isolated or loved that area that they lived in, but now they don't know their neighbors because the community's turned over and they don't feel
Exactly.
connected.
Right. Right.
Sometimes some of that congregate retirement living is just the thing, even if they only need a little bit of support, you know, there's kind of a restaurant there, or maybe they opt in and out of a meal plan, and I usually say, don't do everything right away. Like, do you know someone? Do you know someone that's been there? How you ask these things with your, I'll call it parent for short form, but whoever
Mhm.
is the older person,
Mhm.
how you ask them is probably as important or more important than what you ask them. Right. So
Mm.
if I'm asking my
Wow.
mom, hey, I think that what we should do is we should come, and I think I'm going to sell the house, and you're going to choose a retirement home. There's one close by, and I'm going to come in this weekend and we'll get it all done. Well, can you imagine someone coming telling you that? I mean,
Please,
uh,
please. And
right.
yeah. Yeah.
At best, your relationship won't go anywhere. At worst, you'll break your relationship. But what you could do, maybe you're on the phone, maybe you're on a video call, maybe you're home, whichever. How's Mrs. So and so or Mr. Something? And where are they? The neighbors, the friends. Are you playing bridge or canasta? Or are you, going lawn bowling, or, playing baseball, or going to whatever it is you do,
Mhm.
going to this faith
Mhm.
community?
Mhm.
Where are they? Oh, wow. They're in that horrible place. And you can think to yourself, okay, we're not going there. And then where's, Mr. Lee? Oh, he's in this very nice seniors, oh, is it
Very
really?
nice.
We should, very nice. Maybe we should have lunch on Sunday and visit him. So then there's this
Ooh.
idea of kind of warming it up. Now we're having social calls. Well, maybe
Exactly.
it's really, really cold and snowy where your mom lives, and maybe the month of January she might
Mhm.
consider moving in. So lots of places have
Mhm.
short stays,
Mhm.
and folks don't know that, right? So you
Mm.
often go for a short stay,
Mhm.
and then you get like, well, I don't want to live there 11 months a year, but that 1 month of year in January, it's too hard. I can't get out.
That is a
Come back,
great idea.
right? And
Mhm.
so a lot of places do have these short stays, and it can be a real advantage.
Mhm. Mhm. And and this is funny. What I'm seeing a lot more on Instagram and TikTok and other places is, excerpt, little clips from these nursing homes, and I'm like, wow. Now that if I have to go to nursing home, I want to live
I
like
want to
that.
go there, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
And
absolutely. And I think what's really important about that is to think,
Mhm.
what is it that they like? Okay, that's
Mhm.
obvious. And to also make sure that that's still what they like. So think about the last time you lived at home. I don't know, for you, it might be quite different. The last time I lived at home, I'm 54, turning 55. And the last time I was there, I was 17, turning 18, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
my idea of what my parents liked and what they were like, and they have an idea that, I'm an idiot and can't pick up my clothes. Right. And so you're kind of fixed in time often by the thinking about who they were when you last lived together.
Mm.
And I might have this idea that, my dad needs to be able to do these things, and he may have not
Mhm.
be interested in them anymore.
That's
He may
right.
want something else. So don't kind of presume. The other thing that's really important when we think about either aging in place or finding resources, or alternatively having visits, people often
Mhm.
do visits wrong. Right?
Mhm.
They pack up the kids, or they pack up the grandkids. They come visit mom and dad or grandma and grandpa. They spend the whole day. Maybe they come for the weekend or a week,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And maybe they want to take them to a theater, or they want to take them out for a restaurant, and it's just a mess. Yeah, it will be a mess, right? There's better ways of doing it. Usually it's much better to come to them. And
Mhm.
I think of the 90-minute rule. You know,
Okay.
30 minutes to get set up for whatever it is you're going to do, 30
Mhm.
minutes to do the thing, 30 minutes to kind of wind down from the thing and go. The fewer transition points, the better, in a quiet space.
Oh, okay.
because 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 have significant cognitive impairment, most of whom don't have things fixed yet.
Right.
And
Right.
1 in 2 over the age of 80 have significant cognitive impairment. And if you have the AV or the HVAC or the heating on, that fan is usually at the same level of their hearing aid. And if they don't have a hearing aid, they can't hear you over it. So
Oh, that's so
quiet, one
true.
person at a time. And often people are very worried, right? And anyone who's of a certain age, you'll know this experience. They're often worried, can they get to powder their nose quickly if they need to? Can they run to the bathroom quickly?
Mhm.
And, they may not want to go out and do some giant activity that they used to like hiking in the woods, or they may not want to drive for 30 minutes to go to a fancy restaurant because they're not sure how continence is going to work for them, or
Right.
they don't want to be caught out.
Exactly.
And so that's one of those things to pay attention to. Easier if you can kind of meet them at a place where they know, even if it's maybe not as fancy or whatever, and just spend the time. I think of it as the difference between a gravy and a demi-glace, right? Or lots of sauce. What's a concentrated version that they like, right? I mean, as opposed to sort of the 5-day extravaganza, is it that they like, I don't know, doing a certain activity with the kids? Okay, then let's do one activity a day and let people have a break in between.
Oh, I like that.
One activity a day. That's it.
Okay. Before we go any further, and I know you're covering some of this now, but I want to talk about your best-selling book. Let's talk about aging parents. I was looking through it, and full disclosure, I haven't read the whole thing, but I feel like I have. It's amazing.
Well, it's actually meant to be a handbook, so you can open at any page at any point. So you never really need to read the whole thing. You only need to read it for the bits you want at the time you need it.
Yes, and what's so cool is I was reading where you give the readers 27 prompts and roadmaps, right? And does my parent need help around the house? What kind of medical issues should we look for? Do I really need to help help my parent if they're toxic? How can we age-proof our parents' home so they can keep living at home? And how can my family share the load? And you hear those stories all the time about one sibling, 1 or 2 siblings or whatever, they have their hands on the pulse. And while the other ones are, off to the side. But tell us about your book and some of the highlights of stuff that really drive home this message about talking to your parents.
This book? It's right here. I have it. It's called Let's Talk About Aging Parents. And there's also available on audiobook. A lot of people love to get it on audiobook because they listen to it in the car, or they listen to it when they're walking the dog, because they just need that one chapter about dementia, or they're starting to act funny. Like, is it dementia, or is it a UTI, or how is it a health issue? Or, the very last chapter is what to do about my parent if they shouldn't maybe be driving anymore.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry.
That's such a hard one, right? It's the very last chapter, so you can find it really easily.
Yes.
Look, the whole idea was you need to have, I don't know, hacks, maybe is the right thing. If you've been in the field a long time, you get people that come to you and they say, I'm worried because I think my mom's going to fall and break a hip. Well, that's a valid worry. Or I'm worried that my dad might not be taking his medications. That's possible. Or I'm worried that I've got the unsuccessful nephew who's moved into, grandma's basement, and I don't know what's going on there, or whatever. And that is a worry that they need solved. It's usually the tip of the iceberg, right? There's usually a whole bunch of other things that are falling out from that. And so it wasn't really that I even wanted to write a book. It was that I wanted to have a book to give people, be like, well, I know you're asking about that, but can you read chapter as well? And I came from the idea of, a long time ago when I was, having kids for the first time, I had this book on my bedside. It was called The Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy. And whenever I had a thought or a question, I reached over, and they had one for their first year, and I just opened to the chapter that I needed, and it made me laugh. But it was the real talk, spend money here, don't spend money here. Here's another thing you can do, etc. And I thought, where's that for all of the literally thousands, tens of thousands of books we have on pregnancy and child raising? Where's the hack, the practical stuff that doesn't make me either feel bad about myself, or it doesn't tell me to eat right and exercise, or that I should love all my family members all amazingly, or doesn't, but actually gets the fact that maybe I don't need to buy those horrible big incontinence products, but maybe, period underwear, like Nick's or other kinds, maybe those would work just as well. And I could buy those for my mom, and she doesn't have to have this sort of indignity of this or, right. And they're quite inexpensive and they're a great solution to that. So there's all of these things. Well, you don't need to spend 30 years to learn the fact that if your plates and cups are red, a person with cognitive impairment is more likely to eat. Whereas if you have a plate that's white or clear, which is most people's plates are kind of light colored, they can't quite visualize or see the food. And so when someone says to me, I'm worried my mom's not eating, I was like, well, go down to the local Target, Walmart, IKEA, whatever it is that you've got, right? Goodwill. Go get some red plates and bowls and cups and then see in a week's time if she's starting to eat. And you'd be amazed. Or the fact that we've got something called object permanence, which means that if your cupboards are closed, people forget what's behind them. Sometimes I forget what's behind them too. You buy mustard 6 times, right? But if you take the covers off of the cabinets or put glass in front of them, then the person whose memory might be just starting to kind of go a bit, or, they're kind of coping, and all of a sudden, or they can see what's there and they're more likely to use the things or eat the things. So there's lots of these evidence-based, this is real science, but they're the hacks. You don't need to do the 30 years of research. People just need to know what they need to know when they need to know it.
That is a brilliant the red plates. I never knew. I remember years and years and years ago discovering that, a lot of the fast food restaurants had the orange and the yellow in there. Oh my gosh. So now, what great. That's great information.
Red stimulates your appetite, So, I think McDonald's
open cabinetry.
Open cabinetry. These are easy things that don't cost a lot of money. Doubling your banisters or your handrails. Okay. Doubling your handrails will reduce your falls risk by 56%.
Now say that again when you mean doubling.
So you usually have one as you go down the stairs. There's usually one
on both sides.
Yeah. But if you put a second one, and the person, not just put them there, you have to be able to hold both of them at the same time.
Of course, right.
Someone's like, I put one there, and I'm like, yeah, but that's 20 feet away from the other one. That's not helpful.
Exactly. Right.
But if you're able to go down the stairs and hold a handrail or a banister, we call them, and a good quality, but don't have it just falling out of the wall, right? Have it anchored into the wall nicely. You will reduce your falls risk on average by 56%. And just reflecting back, your experience with your family member, falls are one of the worst things that can happen. If you fall and break a hip, your chances of dying in the first 12 months is about 50%. And your chances of dying, if you didn't die the first 12 months, your chances of dying in the next 12 months, so 2 years after your fall and break, it is about 75%. And if you didn't die, this is dire, right? If you didn't die, your chances, particularly for women, of ever walking normally again is less than 20%. So falls prevention is huge. Well, all you need to do is spend $50 on a handrail and $5 on some really good anchors and put them into the wall and double them up. You could reduce your risk by 56%. I bet you'd do it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. And get rid of those throw rugs all throughout your homes too, right? It's no.
That's such an interesting thing that you said that, because things like objects and throw rugs particularly can be very meaningful to people. So I know some of us will go in, particularly folks that really are neat freaks or really like a minimalist vibe, and they go to their parents and maybe they've collected tchotchkes and knickknacks and their furniture is clunky. And I mean, this is something that happens. Tastes change and so on. And they say, you can't get your way around here. Well, that may be true, right? That may be true. But part of it is also honoring the fact that if someone came into your living room and said, oh my God, this is so ugly and cluttered, or this is so stark, I'm going to change it and fix it, and threw out all your stuff, you probably wouldn't react well. So understanding what's really precious is important. And I'll just tell this little story to kind of give you an example about how you can be creative. So I had an older woman, and she did live in a retirement home, and she had this beautiful throw rug. I mean, it was really gorgeous. And she kept tripping on it, and she was going to fall and break a hip. She might have hit her head. You could see that the retirement home was just beside them, and everyone was trying to do the right thing, but she wouldn't do anything about it. And she got into a real conflict over them, and they were thinking of evicting her on this because she it was such a problem, this throw rug, because she would literally fall on the regular basis, and staff were worried about it, and so on and so forth. Until we came in and sort of asked ourselves, what is the problem we're trying to solve for here? Right? While they're all together about risk management and litigation and da 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 da. And I was like, I sat down with her and I said, tell me about your rug. Well, turns out that she had fled the Nazis as a small child, and they had folded up their only possessions in this rug and literally made it into a kind of a carpet bag in the Sound of Music style. And she and her brother were the only ones that made it out, and everybody else in the family didn't. They were Jewish. And she escaped to North America with all of her possessions kind of rolled in this carpet bag rug. And then she got married on it. She was Jewish, and so they had the traditional ceremony for her wedding ceremony on this rug. And this is the rug that was the most important thing for her. And so I said, that's so beautiful. I'm a bit worried that it's going to get worn because, what if we cleaned it and then put it on the wall so everyone could really appreciate how beautiful this rug was?
I was just thinking about that. Just like this little piece back here. It's not this little.
Yeah. Problem solved. She was and as it turns out, what went from a big conflict, and I mean, she was literally ready to be evicted. The home didn't even know the story that she was a Holocaust survivor. They didn't actually know that. She wasn't a person that spoke a lot about it. She was quite young when she left, and it was quite traumatic. She ended up actually getting connected with some of the local schools and the intergenerational programs around Holocaust and World War II. She would bring people into her room and show them the rug and tell them the story. And so she actually got reconnected back into her Jewish community, her cultural community. She started having visitors. She got written up in different newspapers. Because the question was, what is the problem we're trying to solve for? Not do what I say. No, I'm not going to. So again, really helpful as we age, or as we're trying to help the people around us age and not kind of go crazy in the process. Sometimes just asking, tell me about this, or what does that mean to you? And like driving. Well, if you live in a rural community, it doesn't just mean that you can't drive. It may mean that you can't live there anymore, or they're terrified that you can't go to the cottage anymore, or like, what does that mean to you is such an important question. And for us to reflect on ourselves, what is the most meaningful thing to me? Is it being in this building or in this community? Is it that I want I've told my, kids, listen, if I'm ever at a point where I can't wear nice shoes, like that's it, I'm out, right? Like if you told me I had to wear ugly shoes all the time, I probably wouldn't be so pleased about that. I bet we can find beautiful shoes that might take a little bit more looking around than going and getting the orthopedic ones. Turns out there's all kinds of nice shoes out there that are more comfortable, and now we have them. But back in the day, or if you just went to the, pharmacy and bought some of those shoes, those orthopedic shoes, you might be like, oh, I don't want to ever wear that. And because, my personal well-being means I really like shoes. So again, what's the problem we're trying to solve for? And can we just sort of listen to understand, not listen to respond?
I like that. I like that too. And you hit on a couple of things. I thought about my grandmother with her hip when she fell. I think she was like 85 or something like that. And to my knowledge, my sister and I were talking about this one day. We never, and I was with her a lot. We don't remember her ever being hospitalized or going to the doctor before she fell. She was.
And then after that, right?
And she went down, and
Well, and the other thing to do, I mean, if you talk about what are the three magic things, there's three magic things you can do for good longevity, right? Three. I mean, there's more you can do, but three is a manageable number besides eat right and exercise, which, all right, fine, right? We're all supposed to do that. But here are the three things. Number one, don't fall, right? So the book takes you through all the different, like literally there's a chapter that goes room by room in how to avoid falls. What are some of the hacks that you can do, like those double handrails and so on and so forth. You can get, we talk about chair rail or wainscoting. You can actually put nice on, and you can put a horizontal banister or handrail in all of the hallways, and it can look just like the wall. Like, it could be beautiful, right? But it actually provides stability, right? So there's all these great hacks. So number one, don't fall.
Okay.
Right. Number two, get vaccinated for everything you possibly can get to. And this should not be a political thing. Many people don't realize that the shingles vaccine called Shingrix has just been found almost 1 year ago, April last year,
Mhm.
been found that actually it's got about 24% protective against dementia.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, and you don't get shingles, which is
Right.
also helpful.
Right.
Shingles is horrible. So
Right.
pneumonia. Many people don't realize that there's a pneumonia vaccine. Pneumonia, they used to call it the old man's friend, right?
Mhm.
Because it would take you away, right?
Mhm.
So pneumonia, influenza, RSV, shingles, right? All of these ones have vaccines. And
Mhm.
the best thing you can do, not only for the immediate thing, you don't get pneumonia or you're much reduced, you don't have some of these problems. But also there's these incredible knock-on effect, right? It may help you with your COPD. It may help you with against stroke. It may help you with your heart. So there's all
Mhm.
these other protective aspects to it.
Mhm.
So number 1, don't fall. Number 2, get vaccinated for everything you possibly can get vaccinated
Mhm.
for. And number 3, stay socially connected.
Oof.
And
That's
it, almost more than eat right and exercise, stay socially connected. And it doesn't even need to be the same stuff that you always did. In fact, sometimes novelty is what's really good. It gets you
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
building new brain pathways in. But if you are lonely, it actually increases your dementia risk by 40%, 40.
Girl, 40%.
And
40.
if you are lonely, it can take up to 8 years off of your life. And it's as bad, being lonely is as bad for you as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Okay.
So
Wow.
conversations like this,
Uh-huh.
communities, nothing ever doesn't have to be always in person all the time, but staying socially connected. So my dad plays bridge online. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, you're just playing with the machine? No, he's got this whole global group of people he plays online bridge with. I had no idea that
Nice.
he did that, but he's
Right.
socially engaged. And he's
Right.
talking to people and he goes out and does things. And it, as I say, it doesn't need to be the same thing. So if your dad was always, say, a golfer and can't golf
Mhm.
anymore,
Mhm.
but you want to make sure, pay attention. Is he doing something else or is he just doing less? So,
Wow.
and
Okay.
that's one of the things that women are often very good connectors. They're good
Yeah.
social connectors,
We're better
social
at it.
glue.
Yeah,
We're
for
better at
sure.
it. But the
Mhm.
highest suicidality in North America, well, particularly Canada and US, tends to be older single men. And by that, often it's widows or divorced, people who are
Mhm.
divorced,
Mhm.
who had a partner and then don't, between the
Mhm.
ages of 70 and 72. That's the highest group for suicidality. It's not teenagers.
So
It's
sad.
single men, often,
Mhm.
who are no longer in the workforce, don't have a sense of purpose,
Mhm.
and their lives got smaller and smaller and smaller. So number 1, don't fall. Number 2, get vaccinated for everything you possibly can. Number 3, stay socially connected. It really is actually a matter of life and death.
And I totally believe all of that. And getting back to the vaccinations, the vaccines, it even becomes even more crucial if
Oh,
you're in a nursing home, or another group situation like that. And
critical.
plus, even if you're living, aging in place, or you're with your children or grandchildren, you have the youngins that are going to come around.
Oh, and they're
What they
completely,
carry.
they're absolutely. I mean, you want to hug your grandchildren, you're going to be covered in. I mean, my kids I think, had sort of snotty noses for the first 5 years because
Mhm.
kids get things, but
Mhm.
their health and immunities are generally pretty good. So they're able to do it. What you don't want is the grandkids to kill grandma with a kiss.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
And
Right.
some children haven't yet had the vaccines that they need to get because they're not yet old enough to get them, right? And so
Mhm.
you don't want grandma, to give that child who hasn't yet had, maybe they're at 2 months old and they haven't had their, MMR vaccines yet or something. You
Mhm.
don't want grandma's kiss to hurt the infant. So incredibly important. But again, it's not just shingles is a perfect example. Doesn't just prevent you from getting shingles, which it does about 94%.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
how common is shingles? Well, 1 in 3 people over the age of 50 will get shingles. And if you get it once, it's recurrent. And 1 in
Mm.
2 people over the age of 65 will get
Mm.
shingles if you're not vaccinated. And it is
Wow.
so painful. The only thing they can really give you is opioids. And increases the risks of falling, as a matter of fact. You can go
Oh my
blind from
gosh.
shingles. You can get shingles in your eyeballs. And so you could get a vaccine. It's unbelievably easy to get.
Mhm.
And it's 24% protective, it appears to be, against getting dementia. If you told someone you get a 1 in 4 chance of not getting dementia if you took this. Oh, and by the way, you won't get shingles. Wouldn't you be signing up? So the
That.
book's got all of these sort of tips and tricks.
Mhm.
And, people are busy. They're living busy lives. You're just trying to figure out what's important. What can I do
Right.
later? What can I do now?
Mhm.
Those
Mhm.
3 things are the ones that you have to keep. Don't fall, get all your vaccinations, and stay socially connected.
All excellent points. And I know you speak from experience, with the whole elder care thing, because you are doing your own thing, right? You have you and your husband. I think I read where you're doing that balancing act as well.
Oh, of course. I just like everybody else, right? We've
Mhm.
got kids who are 22, 23, and 24.
Mhm.
And we have 6 older people in our life that we're connecting and supporting with. My
Wow.
parents are 89.
Mhm.
My husband's moms are just turning 80 this year, but she's a miracle. She's had incredible bouts of cancer and has actually become cancer free. It's astonishing, but she has
Wow.
no immune
That's
system
hard.
now. And
Mhm.
her wife is 75. And
Mhm.
I've got another
Mhm.
set of in-laws around as well, and one's got significant cognitive impairment. These are our lives.
Right.
And so it's okay, but it means that it's 3 a.m. and I have to get that PowerPoint presentation done, or it's 3 a.m. and I'm constantly holding the phone to see if has mom fallen, or
Mhm.
how do I divide my time? What's most important? Oh, you mean if I'd actually done these things, I could do some of these things online, or maybe mom won't wear one of those falls
Oh,
things. I hate them, right?
oh,
But there's
oh,
so
oh.
many incredible ones you can have now. Your Apple Watch can do it, right? Like there's
Mhm.
things like that you can have. And lots of people, particularly if they're like, well, you can either stay at home quite independent, but you have this technology
Mhm.
that will, raise the alarm if things need, or they'll goes off if your blood
Mhm.
sugar's dropping or
Mhm.
whatever. Or you probably can't stay here. And you'd be surprised how many people are like, oh, if I wear this watch, I can stay home and people will tell me that, I should time for my insulin. Like, okay, right? I mean, so there's these trade-offs, but you have to
Mhm.
know what those
Mhm.
trade-offs are.
Yes, yes. And speaking of which the technology, I was when my mother was going through this, of course we didn't have the watches and stuff, but that little I fallen and I can't get up thing. Let me tell you, I went to visit her one time and I answered her phone. The first call was from a scam artist from
Oh, sure.
somewhere.
Oh,
I
yeah.
went off on him. I went off it. But anyway, he didn't call back. The second call was from mom's company who monitors her things. And I says, hello. She says, hi. She's like, is this one of Archie's daughters? I said, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Are you the one in here or from this place or that? I said, whatever. She's like, your mother, she will call and try to talk to us when nothing's wrong. It's like she will push the button and she wants to have conversations. I'm like, oh my God, she's lonely. And you don't see those things and you don't know about them until someone else tells you, even
Yeah.
though you're talking to her as much as you can, somebody else is going by to see her, but just pay attention to those
Those
sort
warning signs are really important. And also look at the state of the fridge. There are some things that you can look
of.
for to
Ooh.
see, right? The state of the fridge. So even if you're visiting maybe a neighbor and you're like, oh, I haven't seen them outside too much, maybe come in and have a cup of tea, right? Or a nice glass of iced tea or
Mhm,
a coffee or
mhm,
something
mhm,
that lets you open the fridge to get the milk. What's the state of it? Maybe they're getting meals on wheels, but actually what happens is that they really can't open the containers. And so there's stacks and stacks and stacks of Meals on Wheels, but they're not open because they can't open the container, or there's no food in the fridge, or who knows, or there's only bananas. Like it's good to have, because we are very good often at these sort of social presentations, and you
mhm,
might be able to say hi and be presenting extremely well. But what you need to get into is those what ifs, right?
mhm.
And if you have people kind of close by, having that, hey, if you would give me a call, I live across the country, or maybe I live across town, but you live right next door. This is my number. I would be really, really grateful. If you haven't seen mom for a couple of days, or you
That is
haven't, or you do see her and she's like out in clothing that doesn't suit the weather, maybe just give me a quick text or something. Having those informal checks means you don't need to have always these big responses, right? The police are looking for you or someone's in a panic, right? But
Right.
it also can give you a little bit of a, okay, maybe there's some confusion going on, or a thing
Yeah.
that many people don't realize is one of the most common reasons for confusion isn't always dementia. It's often a urinary tract infection or a bladder infection.
Oh, you are speaking my language. We found out that the hard way, it got to a point where when something clicked in her brain and she became this different person, we're like, take her in for a UTI. And sure enough, and that's a whole nother podcast right now. But yeah, people don't realize that those UTIs are vicious on older women.
And then for older men as well, because
Oh,
they don't feel it the same way that we often have a lot more experience with it from our younger years. But
mhm,
older men, because of physiology, don't
mhm.
always have some of those same sensations or don't have the burning and so on. And
Oh,
so many times, women may flag to it, but men may not, or how you have a sensation about it. You're like, oh, well, middle-aged, I have to go to the bathroom all the time. Right? Or they're looking confused, or a lot of these, really, it's not dementia. You just need a couple of days of sulfa drugs and some cranberry juice, and you'll probably
yes.
be right as rain. But
Mhm.
untreated can be
Oh
very
my gosh.
serious,
Yeah,
yeah.
very serious.
And can
Yeah.
become a kidney infection, right? So,
Mhm,
on
mhm.
the whole, my general advice is whenever you're seeing a healthcare provider, if you can get a little blood test done and a little
Right.
urine test done, that
Mhm.
actually can make a huge difference.
Okay. All right. And I know we have to wrap this up soon, but I do want to ask you about, like, say, for example, the top three things that we should talk to our parents about, but or
Yeah,
issues that come up. Now, for us, it was the driving, it's the
sure.
whole taking away the car and the driver's license. Because when we first broached my mother with that, the first thing she says was like, "Oh, if you take my license away from me, you might as well call Dr. Kevorkian."
Yep,
I'm like, because that's their independence.
sure. Yeah,
So I would imagine that's one of the points, if you want to talk about that and
it
talk
is.
about just a couple other that,
Yeah.
the
I
biggest
I think
things you see.
I think what's really important, just in building on what you're saying, is the idea of what the implication is for someone, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so it may not be, in fact, the real implication, but they may have it in their mind that it's the implication because they don't use like a ride service and they live in an urban city. It may be really easy, but if you're in a rural area, it may really be the difference between, staying and not staying in that community. So
Mhm,
understanding it. Listen, I think the what ifs are what's really important. And
mhm.
again, how you ask the what ifs is as important as what you ask. So look, the who gets to decide question is perhaps the most important thing. So some people will think
Mm.
about that as powers of attuning, financial stuff,
Mhm.
healthcare stuff, but really fundamentally is who would decide if I couldn't, right? So having the conversation for anyone, if you've got kids or grandkids who are over the age of majority, if they
Mhm.
can drink or vote, you should be having this conversation with them too, right?
That's
What
right.
if you fell down the hill and conked your head? What if you were in a car accident? What if,
Mhm.
right? What if you couldn't make a decision? Who would you pick? And to make those powers of attorney, some it depends on different jurisdictions for the body stuff. They might call them a healthcare directive. You might call it, jargon is often a living will, but like it's a whatever the legal document is in your jurisdiction that you
Mhm.
live in, it's that substitute decision making. If I can't do it, who do I pick? And maybe who's a backup person to be that decision maker? And don't only pick people that you'd be in the same car trip with, right? Because if
Right.
you only ever pick all of you and you're all in the same reunion car
Mhm.
trip and then you all get
Mhm.
hit by a car, you need somebody else, right? So who
Mhm.
gets to decide? And that does not need to be about age or disability. That can just be about emergency planning. Same thing around, your finances. So many people think, well, it'll go to my wife or it'll go to my husband or my kids. But no, that's not how it does. There's no default decision
Mhm.
maker for finance. There's confidentiality and privacy in companies and banks and so on.
Mhm.
Don't just take the next person. You actually have to pick somebody with the power of attorney. And if
Mhm.
not, then it becomes a whole schmozzle and how it's sorted out. It depends on your jurisdiction and if it goes to a
Right.
public trustee or like it's a mess. So it's that same thing. It doesn't need to be about being old or, getting dementia. I
Mhm.
and I've been trying to get my dad, even though he told me I was his attorney for both of the health and personal care as well as the finances. I'd never got a copy of the darn document. And you need the copy of the document to present to the doctor or the bank or the lawyer or whatever that lets you do it. Till finally I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to try a different way. Dad, I said, I haven't redone mine in about 5 years, and it's almost tax time, Use something objective. I'm going on a trip. Kids are going off to school, whatever it is, find something objective. And I guess I need these documents. I got to update them, right? Well, that wasn't threatening to him. I wasn't feeling like I was trying to get in his private business, right? So he was like, oh, okay. I said, yeah, I'm thinking of updating them because person I chose, they moved to, a different part of the country and I kind of thing. I'd love your advice. Well, let me tell you one thing that parents and grandparents and older aunties and so on love to give you.
I'm one of those now. Oh, sorry.
Right. I love to give people advice too. Right. And do as I say, not as I do. And then I was even saying, Dad, you looks like, mine are up to date. Well, his were 20 years out of date. Let's be clear. Right. I'm like, I'm going to hire a lawyer to do it. Maybe we can get like a bulk deal to get them all done. Oh, that's a good idea. Right. So there's strategies. The other one is like, where would you want to go if? And that's that idea of like, well, would you want to stay in your hometown? Is that more important than staying in your house? Would you, where would you go if, right? Like how would you manage what's important to you? Do you want to be by a lake? Do you need to be in a city? Because many people want to retire to very rural places, but they don't have any support services and they don't have transit, right? So I'm thinking about, kind of what would you do if, and I often say like, what would you do if you broke your leg? Or you kind of, it doesn't have to be you lost your marbles. What would you do if you broke your leg? Right. Oh, well, you broke your right leg, so I wouldn't be able to drive. Oh, okay. Right. Well, the answer, well, how would I get around? Well, I guess I've never used one of those ride sharing. I guess I could figure out how to do that. Or, my neighbor would take me or, right. So coming up with that strategy for what would happen in the case of an emergency.
Right.
Is an easy way of having the same conversation in the case of decline, let's call it that way.
Wow.
And that's also the transportation question, right? Like how would you get around? And what's most important to you? And it's amazing what the trade-offs can be. Well, I have a couple that I love and I'm supporting, and they're in their mid-80s, and he's got some glaucoma and macular degeneration, and she's got some cognitive impairment. And it used to be that she wasn't driving because of her cognitive impairment, but he's got his license taken away because of his eyesight. She's never had her license taken away because of her cognitive impairment. And the two of them are driving and she's behind the wheel. And we all kind of do this, right? Like, okay, right. Not a good situation here. But that's quite common where people who are couples will sort of fill in the gaps for each other.
Right.
So part of the conversation may not be about them. But what would you do if dad, I don't know, what would dad do or what would mom do? But you don't say it to them because often they'll rank out on the other person. Right? I don't. How's mom doing? Oh, she's like that. And that's sometimes the person that you can get the down low or the skinny from, or you spill the tea with. So try to figure out what it is and use whatever levers you can do. Sometimes guilt works. Dad, I know that you don't need this, but it would be really if you help me with mom, that would be great. Of course, dad does need it too, right? And then you do the same thing with a mom. I know you don't need this, but it would be great for dad if you go, oh yeah, I've been worried about dad. Okay, right? So what are the strategies in? Always starting with what is the problem we're trying to solve? And how am I going to ask it being as important as what I'm going to ask?
Wow. That I like that. Yeah. So many excellent points. And as we mentioned in the show earlier, you're an elder law attorney. And so I know you've seen a lot. And I'm sure, a lot of families have regrets for waiting too long to make these moves, the legal moves and the documents.
Yeah. I mean, I always say, have a little grace and generosity. We're all supposed to do a lot of things all the time, right? But sometimes you just think, what's that nudge or what's that prompt to get that thing done? And sometimes it's a nice trip somewhere, right? What if I was going to take a cruise? Well, and something happened with the house. Well, I would need somebody there to help. So I guess if I did a power of attorney, then at least I could, have that done. Or what if something happened to me on my trip? I'm 85 years old and I'm hiking up in Tibet or whatever, right? Instead of approaching it with this idea of cognitive impairment, physical decline, hey, what if you're an avalanche? Like, what do you want me to do, right? So we can have the conversations in a bit more of a lighthearted way, but think about what it is that might be that prompt and that nudge. You're right. The will is the other one. It's for sure. In a way, and if someone held me and said, you have to decide what's most important. No, usually the financial power of attorney dockets for property is really the most important because there's no default substitute. In most jurisdictions, there's now it may not be who you want, maybe your brother who you hate, right? Like there's usually a default around your health and personal care choices, although it's good to pick somebody. And I mean, I do care about what happens to your will and your property and so on, but that you have to separate document because that happens when you're dead, right? And so you need all the stuff while you're alive, but incapable, or alive, but you could use some help. And it's great to have something for, afterwards. If people don't have those good documents, it can leave a huge mess. And you know what? Getting them to talk about it and them bringing up, you'd be amazed because they've got stories of their friends. Right? Oh, I was watching this great podcast and they were talking about the nightmares you can get at if you don't have power of attorney for property. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that. Did you ever read that? I'll send you that podcast, right? Or I'll lip you that article. And then, the Joneses had this terrible time. They had to do all of it. Right. So you can get them to sort of spontaneously tell you what a problem it is. And if you can get them to suggest it and you can agree, then everyone feels great. You know what? Laura, we should get those done. Really, Mom? You think so? Well, I mean, if you want, I guess we could. Sure. I mean, I take your advice. Right. So how you're doing it matters. There is always what I call the nuclear option. Every so often, it's not going to work out. And you will have to say, you know what, Dad? I know the doctor is not taking the keys, but like, I have to report you, or I've got to do it, or you've got to take it around. Or I've tried the version of saying, can you lend the car to my kids so they can take it to university for a couple of weeks? And I've tried the version of, taking the battery out of the key fob. And I've done the version of like taking the spark plugs out or whatever. And it's really a problem now. And you need to have a real-time conversation, and doing it with some compassion or getting a social worker can sometimes help you to do that. But reserve those nuclear options for when you've really exhausted every other version.
Right. Wow, that's right. That is some great advice. And as we mentioned earlier about the healthcare systems, as you mentioned, you're in Canada, I'm in the US, but so much stuff is universal. The issues, the emotional family realities, all of that feels universal.
Well, and for the American context right now too, really, there are changes being made to your Medicare, your Medicaid, your qualifications, your benefits. If you're a veteran, really keep an eye on those changes. And this is where I can say my colleague organization, the AARP, has got terrific information. And of course, there are local chapters everywhere in the United States. So if you're in Hawaii or if you're in Arkansas or whatever, you can really monitor what's happening. It may be useful to go to an elder law attorney. And there's an association in the United States called the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, NAELA, the National Academy.
We're going to put that in the podcast description. Thank you.
And that's an association of lawyers who specialize in this. And they do a lot of Medicare and Medicaid planning. They do a lot of estate planning, help you think about special needs trusts. Maybe you've got a kid who's got a disability, right? Help you think that through. And a little bit of, it's like the vaccines of your money and the vaccines of your decision-making, because you need to do those. And when you don't, it can be a real problem. And you might not be qualified for things that you would have ordinarily gotten.
Wow. Yeah. That's so true.
Things are changing right now in the States, right?
Yeah,
and so it can be very quick. And so it may be that you think to yourself, oh, I'm okay with that because I own my own house. I don't have to worry about that, or I've done this. Well, things are changing quite rapidly. And so I'd suggest keeping an eye on perhaps our colleague organization, the AARP's local, as well as their national work, and see what's happening, because you really have to make sure that you're future-proofing your own well-being as well as that of your aging parents.
That is so true. The AARP is a great organization. Now this is my last question I have to ask, and we've covered some of this, but I just want to know that one piece. If there's one conversation that you wish more adult children would begin today with their aging parents, what would it be?
What are you going to do if you can't do it?
Oh.
What are you going to do if you can't do it? And fill in with anything. What are you going to do if you can't do it? What if you can't use your hand? What if you can't see? What if you can't get to the bank? What if you can't, figure out go to your job? What are you going to do if you can't do it? What's the plan? Right?
Wow, that is amazing, because you do think about that. I remember reading a couple of years ago where it said, a lot of older people, they do retire, they retire other places, but then when they start getting really, really up there in life, then they decide to move back home, because
Sure.
you need that support system. Maybe you establish that support system where you live.
You can do. But what are you going to do if you can't do it is really, really important. And and then you put your top 3. Don't fall. Get vaccinated for absolutely everything, and stay socially connected. And if you feel like you're not, your physical environment isn't as safe as it could be, go through the book and go through and try to make it safer. A lot of times for either no money or very little bit of money, or things are quite possible that you didn't know are possible. Try to make sure that you are actually, like, the best thing you can do for your health is get vaccinated. Eat right, and exercise. Yes, of course. But it's not like we don't know that, right? But it's true. Eat right and exercise is very important. Right. And the most important thing, make sure that you've got a connection and a community, and it's easy for it to go away, right? If you stop doing one activity, you stop going to a faith community, your neighbors move away, you outlive everybody that you know, it's easy to kind of fall off that wagon. And so you can build it back, but you have to pay attention to it. So if the it there was, so what would you do if you can't do it? You love living on this street, or you love living in this village, or you love being in this community. Well, first, what would you do if you couldn't live in that community anymore for whatever reason? And number 2, what if it didn't feel like that community to you anymore? Do you love it because of the trees, or do you love it because of the neighbors? Right. And if the neighbors are moving, would you want to move too? Or how would you go find new relationships? Would I go to my senior center? Would I go to, take up an activity that is a new activity? Anyway, you can do it, but it does require some attention.
Okay. We covered everything. This is just such an amazing conversation. I learned so much, and I'm sure everyone else will too. So many great tidbits. Thank you so much. We've been talking to Lauren Tamblyn Watts. She's the CEO of CanAge. That's Canada's National Seniors Advocacy Organization. And she's also an elder law lawyer. And as we've been talking about, that beautiful book, she's the author of Let's Talk About Aging Parents. Woo! Yes, you got to get that book. We're going to have all the information about her in the podcast description, where you can reach her, where you can read about her, all of that, where you can follow her and support her, that she's amazing. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming on the Ageless.
Thanks for the compliments. And I think it's great, because part of what we're thinking about is, how do we make sure that our personality is expressed in our longevity? And I think the podcast that you are hosting really focuses on trying to make sure that we are having that personality in longevity.
You are my girl. You rock. Thank you so much. That is so nice. I appreciate you. I really, really appreciate you. And thank you so much for coming on the show, and keep doing what you're doing, kicking butt in this industry. There's a groundswell. There are more and more of us every day. And we all need help, because as we know, the whole anti-aging discrimination, I should say, is alive and well.
No,
and
really
we just have to keep fighting back and supporting each other and sharing information. And that's what we're doing right now. Thank you, Laura, for coming on the show.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Wow, endless amounts of great information. Thank you. This is such an important season of life, and one that many women are navigating quietly while still managing their own responsibilities and transitions. Preparation, compassion, and honest conversations can truly make a difference. Laura, thank you so much for helping us approach this topic with clarity and confidence. And to our listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, consider sharing it with a sibling, another family member, or a friend. Sometimes a podcast episode can open the door to conversations we've been unsure how to begin, right? Thank you so much for your love and support and for subscribing to the show and our YouTube channel and joining us on the Ageless Cafe on Facebook. So cheers to healthy aging and joyful living, lovies. We'll reconnect again real soon.